Yo, what's poppin' everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Zach Lesage here. We're going to be going through another iteration of the top 10 best decks in format. We haven't had any major events since San Antonio, so a lot of the results here have been a mix between San Antonio plus some of the larger online events that are going on the Play Limitless website. That being said, there is a little bit of movement this week, so stay tuned to see exactly what's up. In the pinned comment, there's going to be copy and pastable lists for all of the top 10 decks, along with video references for most. If you haven't already, give this video a like, share with your friends, subscribe to the channel to help us get to those 20k subs, and let us know in the comments which deck you think are the top 10. That being said, let's get it. Laser beaming its way into that number 10 spot after a few weeks of not being in our top 10, we got Iron Valiant EX with Entei V. Now, this is the deck that came second at the Latin American International Championships and relatively fell off. Now, there was a few top players that played it at some various events in between, but the results never were that peak of number 2 that we thought the deck might be. Now, is this deck really good? Where is it doing? Why is it on this list? Well, we had an online event where the majority of the top 8 was this deck. And I think a lot of it has to do with just Charizard and Gardevoir and Lost Zone box decks seeing success in this format and being able to kind of abuse those decks with Tachyon Bits and Metacham and all that good stuff. So kind of like Rapid Strike seeing success in this format, we do have this as well. So Iron Valiant Entei, pretty cool deck. Give it a try if you haven't already. And I mean, again, lists are in the description. If you need any of the cards for these decks, you can go to PTCGLstore.com, get some online code cards to build these decks on PTCG Live. You can go to deckoutgaming.ca, take up some cards, some sealed product there. Same thing with AtlasCollectibles.com. They got sealed, singles, graded, all that great stuff. It also supports the Shuffle Squad, so check it out in the description for some discount codes. Bless, let's jump into our number 9 pick. Kicking into our number 9 pick, we have Mew VMAX. Now, Mew VMAX with Fusion Strike has been holding on to the kind of bottom half of the metagame by like the threads, where it's like, it's not the number 10 deck because it's definitely within the top 10, but it's not the number 1 deck. And I mean, it's not ever going to be bad. Like, if you're a Mew main, you know what you're doing with the matchups, play this deck. The thing that's really scary is Charizard's been seeing a lot of success. Players are playing Spiritomb. Now, this deck has a little bit of footing against Spiritomb with Fusion Strike energy. However, I just feel like Mew's kind of like at the point where we're kind of hating it out of the format with the way the decks are seeing success. If we see Gardevoir taking off a little bit more, and we'll maybe dive down that in a little bit more in this list, this deck can definitely rise up. So Mew VMAX, like all the bottom top 10 decks are all more than acceptable plays. I think they could all win a regional championships. I think better are just the better matchups decks in the format, or the decks that are performing a little bit more. So if you're wondering how it like is ranked or whatever, something like the Iron Valiant Entei, it's like it does struggle with some tough matchups on this list, or it does struggle with some tough matchups in general, but it does beat some of the top 3 decks or something like that. Same thing with Mew, it might beat some of the more middle tier decks, but it struggles with a few other decks. So that's relatively how they're played. So decks lower on this list are going to have some struggle matchups, but they also can hit some high peaks as well. But yeah, Fusion Strike Mew, I think that this is a solid deck. Nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with any of the decks on this list. I think we're actually in a format where there's like 15, 20 decks that are all acceptable, because you'll see some decks that just didn't make this list that I could easily like win money with at a regionals. I'm not saying I could easily win money, but someone else could easily win money, because regionals are kind of tough nowadays. Sliding into that number 8 spot, we have Lost Zone box Radiant Charizard with Sableye. Now, this is, I believe, the same list that we saw Christian Fontenot win Stuttgart regionals with, and I think that this is kind of like the default rad SableZard kind of list that players are kind of playing around with. We've seen the versions that play Roaring Moon, we've seen these kind of Lost Zone box tech boxes. I think that this version gets straight to the point, and when we're seeing Lost Tina hit peaks as high as it's hitting, we want to be basically playing a streamlined turbo version of Lost Zone box. And that's not to get it confused with Lost Zone Turbo or anything else like that. This build is very pure, and it's just trying to get cards in the Lost Zone so you can cram, then you can go Sableye, and then you can go Radzard later on in the game. That's why it's effective in this metagame, because it's very quick to the punch, and it has a decent bit of answers, like Technical Machine, De-Evolution, Roxanne, stuff like that, to deal with other things in our formats. Max Miracling its way all the way to the number 7 spot is Mew VMAX with Path to the Peak. Now you might be like, yo, Zach, what makes this different than the other Mew deck? Because this one also plays a Fusion Strike energy. I believe this is Andrew Hedrick's list that they played at San Antonio Regionals. They play 1 Fusion Strike energy so that you can shut off Spiritomb, so you're able to draw some cards with Genesect, effectively making a Cram-O-Matic a draw supporter, and then you can play a supporter after that. Pretty cool tech there. The reason why this deck is good is because Path plus Judge plus Iono is good, because we can really just hit... so we're more of an, I don't want to say aggressive deck, but we're like Path Judge is just a good strategy that we have in this format, and that can definitely like take away, like if you're playing against a Charizard deck, you Path Judge them, knock out your Charizard, they might not necessarily be able to recover from that. So Path Judge has its own kind of like side win con, which makes it good in some decks. You'll see like Arceus decks are going to be playing that sometimes, or you'll see even like Tina plays the Roxanne Path. Things like a lot of disruption is good in this in these types of decks. So that's why Mew's up here has more disruption than the other Mew, but it's different enough in how it plays out that it earns its own spots. Photon blasting its way into number 6 is regular Miraidon EX. And I'm saying regular because it's the non-turbo build. I've thought about it a little bit, and I'm like, I think Miraidon EX has seen more success overall with this kind of standard build. And this, to me, I think it's Regan Retzcloff's exact 60 from day 2 of San Antonio Regionals. One of the best players in the game, and absolutely a super standard Miraidon list, but a really good player playing a really fine-tuned list is going to be really good. I think this is only 1 card off from Yuho's Latin American International Championships winning deck, where they switched an Arven for an Iono, and I think it was a Path for a Beach Court, and I think there was one other card for an extra Lightning Energy. I think it was like a Nest Ball or something like that. So those are like 3 changes off, and to me, I like these changes more for my personal playstyle. So that's what I'm going to kind of project here. And I mean, that's really where these top 10 decks are. It's like, hey, by the way, these are my suggestions as a player who's been playing for 20 years as of 2024. So hopefully you're able to take that experience and really push towards it. And I mean, Miraidon's a really good deck. It's number 6. I think it's kind of fallen middle of the pack. Because it doesn't necessarily have the best Charizard matchup, but it does do really good against Gardevoir and has its opportunities against any deck because Iron Hands really gives you the opportunity to kind of fight back against Lost Zone Box. So I think Miraidon has the opportunity to kind of push through and be a little bit better. We just haven't had necessarily that breakout performance since LAIC. Psychic embracing its way into our number 5 spot is Gardevoir EX. Now, what was once touted as the best deck in format is kind of slid into the middle of the format because decks have adapted around it where it's just like Lost Tina has always been kind of a close matchup. Charizard, which is always one of your kind of good matchups, contrary to the popular belief that weakness is everything, has kind of adjusted a little bit. And Gardevoir just struggles a lot against a lot of the kind of mid decks in the format, like Miraidon and Mew and stuff like that. So Gardevoir's kind of lost its footing a little bit, might find its way back. So if you're a Gardevoir player, this is a very solid list. I think most lists are going to be looking like this as we kind of go forward. However, it's kind of like you have to be really good at Gardevoir to get those good results with Gardevoir, and that might not sound like you can get better results with the Miraidon, not playing Miraidon perfectly. Gardevoir, you have to play very well because it's much of a technical deck. It's not as easy as Electric Generator onto your Pokemon attack. Gardevoir is a lot more forefront, so that's one of the other reasons that's holding it back. I don't think enough good players are really playing Gardevoir. I mean, they have their valid reasons for sure, but it is one of those things that's holding it back, that we just don't have enough good players playing Gardevoir to push this deck. I mean, when you have Azul, arguably the best player in the game, I actually think Azul's the best player in the game right now. Playing Charizard, they're not winning with Gardevoir. You know what I'm saying? So just keep that in mind, and that's one of the reasons why Gardevoir is there. We do have quite a few of our TSS members that are great at Gardevoir. So if you want to learn a little bit more about this deck, or you might be like, hey, I want to learn about any of these other decks, I will shamelessly plug our Patreon here. Our Patreon has long-form articles, access to all of our deck lists, access to talking with the squad. So check out the description for www.patreon.com/TSSWin. Support the squad. Really great way to jump into the holidays, become a better player. Yo, jumping into number 4 and blocking that path is Block Snorlax. We have Cal Connor's top 8 list from San Antonio. And I think this actually, after talking with Cal Connor on my way for a drive to Montreal, one of those late night calls with the homies, we kind of discussed it, and we're like, we think that the Snorlax build is better than the Pidgeot build for a variety of reasons. I'll let Cal jump into that on one of his like articles or one of his Metafy, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll let him explain all that. We think that this build's better. However, I think that Control is taking our number 4 spot. I like this idea of just playing Control. Of course, you do well against a lot of really good decks because you just kind of walk them out of the game, mill them out of resources, and then you win. Might not be the most fun and interactive way to be playing the game, but it certainly is successful because I believe Cal started off 10-0 at San Antonio and made all the way to top 8, except he lost to Lost Tina, which is an auto loss. So there's still auto losses up there, and there's still matchups that are tough when you're playing Block Lax. However, I think that Block Lax is quite good in this format, so keep that in mind as we approach the metagame. And Block Lax is probably just a really good play because players are not really countering it. This deck is always going to be like sub 4% of the meta, just due to complexity of playing, hard to acquire cards, and players just don't necessarily like playing Control. That means it's often not a good idea to tech Minior and other good techs against it. So top players are just willing to take the loss. Like, if I'm playing a deck to Portland Regionals, which I'm no longer attending just due to a mental health break, I would not be countering Snorlax. I'd either be playing it or playing a deck that loses to it. G-Max spiraling out of control and landing at number 3 is Inteleon VMAX with Rapid Strike Urshifu, Rapid Strike box. Didn't necessarily get the results that it wanted at San Antonio. I was one of those players that played it, and I hit some matchups like some Miraidons that were going crazy, and a Roaring Moon that knocked me out of the tournament. But this deck is one of the few decks that beats Charizard, and I mean, I'm not here to foreshadow whatever. If Charizard's not on the list and it's on the thumbnail, might be within one of the top decks in format. Guess we'll see. But that being said, this is one of the few decks that beats it, and I think we're kind of in a format where you either play the best deck in formats, have techs that beat the best deck in formats, or you play a deck that beats the top deck in format. I don't know if I said the same three, so beat it, play it, or tech against it. You don't want to take a loss to Charizard, in my opinion. And I think that this deck having a slightly favorable matchup to Charizard is one of the reasons why it's seeing success, and also why the Iron Valiant decks are starting to see a little bit more success. So we're kind of getting back to that around LAIC metagame, and maybe that's going to be when Gardevoir shines again. However, right now this is a solid time to be playing this deck. I find it's a little bit of a brick fest. There's a few of the top decks that are a little bit of a brick fest, but when it works, this deck is sick. So give it a try if you haven't already. Kicking its way all the way to number 2 with that Lost Zone action is Lost Zone Tina. Now, Tina has been kind of on a tear, and a lot of people have been like, hey, it saw success at San Antonio. You'd be laughing to think you'd see success at our next regionals in Portland. I think that's the furthest thing from the truth, because Tina is a counter to Charizard. Again, haven't seen it on the list. I wonder what's our number 1 deck, guys. But in realness, it's one of those things where Tina V-Star has a solid matchup spread, and if this deck sets up, like Rapid Strike Box, it does have some consistency issues, and I do like this list. I believe this is Grant Hayes 60 from the finals of San Antonio Regionals. This deck seems like it's quite good into our metagame, and I think that's kind of the idea. It's also the mirage of the deck. Like, when you're playing a deck that is not the best deck in the format, you are taking a risk of not playing the best deck in format. And sometimes the best deck in format can change around. We're kind of at a point where the top deck has been formed in the format. So Tina having really strong matchup spread, being able to knock out things with Star Requiem, having that Path Roxanne kind of action, gives it a really good opportunity to success. I guess we'll have to see how everything else is going with the rest of the metagame. But yeah, I don't want to guess. I didn't give you any of y'all no guesses, no nothing. So let me know what you think the best deck is in the comments. And if you got it right, give this video a thumbs up. If you got it wrong, share this video on socials with your friends. Got it? Cool, thanks. Boom, it's Charizard. Surprise, surprise. It's the deck that made it on the thumbnail. We talked about it a lot being the best deck, and it's the best deck. I wish that I thought that Charizard was the best deck back when I played it to Peoria and Sacramento. And everyone's like, oh, that's kind of weird that you're playing Charizard. I'm like, no, I thought Charizard's really good, y'all. Got kind of made, like, not like made fun of, but definitely like poked like too many times, where I was like, yeah, maybe I won't really play Charizard. I just should be playing Charizard to every single event. If I cannot play a counter to Charizard, which those counters can definitely get caught in the weeds like I had with Rapid Strike at San Antonio, Charizard is a really good play to any event, and because you have a self-accelerating ability, you have a bleep ton of HP. I mean, if I was talking between my homies, it would not be a bleep ton. You know what I'm saying? Like 330 is a lot. And Burning Darkness is the best attack in the game. Power that up with Quick Search, and then we have a bunch of cool cards like Justified Gloves, Sir Mirror, Locity for Gardevoir. This deck is immune to pretty much almost every single deck. Like even Lost Tina, tough matchup. Azul beat it in the finals, so this is like a couple of cards off from Azul's list. I like double Locity in this deck. I don't know if one random Artisan does anything. I cut something for a Fire Energy. I forget what I did, but I like having 8. 8 is the number that I think is correct, because you can get burned by 7. If you don't get burned with it, you're a regional champion like Azul. If you do get burned by it, hopefully you have fun playing the side events, because side events are super cool. They are super cool. It's just, if you want to do really well in the event, probably play 8. And I did add a Professor Turo's scenario so that we have an opportunity for Mirror or any other matchup to kind of lift up our Charizard. So I thought those are kind of cool changes. Let me know what you think about the list. I think I talked about this in my last video where I covered Azul's list and explained some of those changes. We'll see how it goes, but I think Charizard is going to see a lot of success, or at least a lot of play at Portland. Depends if they hit the counters or how well the players are piloting the deck, but sick Charizard deck. Hopefully everyone enjoys all these lists. Again, all available in the description. You can check out any of our sponsors, pick up these cards online, in real life, sealed, singles, graded, you know what I'm saying? Check out our description, and let me close things out. Another week with Charizard on top. Is Zach going to see success at Portland Regionals or any of the upcoming events? Let me know what you think, and let me know what you think about all of these lists. They're either sourced by my own creations, some inspiration from other Shuffle Squad members, or top performing lists from the community, whether it's from online events or major in real life events. Shout out to everyone who's helped create this video, create this list, and helped with any of the deck lists in this video. I appreciate everyone tuning in. I think this is the last video we got on the Shuffle Squad before New Year's, so happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's. You know what I'm saying? I really appreciate everyone for all the support of this channel. 2024 is going to be an absolute banger. I really appreciate all y'all. I'll get up with all y'all later. Peace out and have a great one. Want to support the Shuffle Squad? Be sure to check out all of our sponsors in the description to pick up Pokemon TCG singles, sealed, and PTCG live codes. Hey trainers, tired of having too many cards lying around? I know that feeling, and I know what a hassle it is to try and sell those cards. But selling bulk is now easier than ever with TCG Bulk. Find tons of potential buyers in a single place. You just download the app, look for the best buyer near you, and carefully pack your bulk, ship it, and you get paid. It really is that simple. Turn the cards you don't want into the cards you absolutely need for your next deck. You made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching this entire video from the Shuffle Squad. Honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, we appreciate each and every person that supports our content, watches what we have going on every single day, every single week, even from time to time, and continuously allows us to have a forum to project our creative content towards the Pokemon TCG community. So if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and even leave a comment to help boost the YouTube algorithm. That being said, we'll catch you with our next video. Thanks again. Take it easy.